Here we are today with News and Views with the Mayor. I'm Harvey Persons, and we're very fortunate today to have with us Miss Amy Henderson, who is the Director of Communications and Marketing for the Georgia Municipal Association, better known and more affectionately known as GMA. Now, one of the reason we wanted to do this interview is to help our viewers understand and know about the partnership that we have with the Georgia Municipal Association and why it's so critically important that we partner with them and what GMA does to help Georgia cities around the state of Georgia. So without any further ado, I'm going to ask Ms. Henderson to tell us a little bit about her first, some of her past experience, what brought her to GMA, and then what she actually does at GMA. And then after that, we'll get into a little bit more about the Georgia Municipal Association and what GMA does to help Georgia cities be better at governing and to be better at helping you, our constituents, with cities around the state of Georgia. So, Ms. Henderson, tell me a little bit about what you do, what brought you to GMA.
I have been at GMA for about 16 years now. It is such a great organization. I'm very fortunate to work with the people that I do. They're super smart, great people, very dedicated to what they do. My background was in newspapers. I was a reporter, so I covered local government for many years, city, county, school boards. And just happened to be living down near Columbus, Georgia. My husband was working for a city as a city attorney and saw in the Georgia Municipal Association newspaper an ad for a communications person. And I read that and I said, you know what, that's me.
I can do that.
Yeah, this is my job. These are my people. And that was just reinforced when I went and met with the folks at GMA. And I have had so much fun working for cities and with cities. I'm not originally from Georgia, but I love this state and have lived in South Georgia, North Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. The only place I haven't lived yet is the coast. I'm saving that for retirement.
Oh, okay.
But I have loved every place I have lived, the people, and so it's really fun for me to get to work with the city officials around the state. And I think all of us at GMA are very passionate about what we do, and I think the underlying thought we all have is what we do matters because what you do matters. What you are doing in your community here is so important, and we want to be the ones that help you to make it easier so you can help your citizens.
Okay, well, good. Well, one of the things that you just heard and you will see as we get more into the interview is that Amy truly is passionate about what she does. She does an excellent job with it, and GMA and Georgia cities are very fortunate to have you and do what you do. I've been mayor now for almost 4 years. I was on the council once before for almost 7, so I had a familiarity and a knowledge of GMA and what GMA does. But I've gotten more involved in GMA over the last 4 years and have come to know Amy a lot better. I've come to realize the excellent job that Amy does helping GMA and helping Georgia cities in that communications effort. So let's get into some of what we want to talk about this morning, and really some of the things that GMA does to help Georgia cities. One of the things, and let's talk about this briefly, is an advocate, if you will, for Georgia cities at the state capitol and with the legislative group during the legislative session. So tell us a little bit about GMA's role working with the legislature at the state capitol this year during this legislative session.
That was the reason that GMA was originally formed. We were formed in 1933, so we're an older organization. And it was cities that came together over a tax issue and realized that speaking with one voice, they had more power at the state capitol. And so that remains our core purpose, is advocating on behalf of cities at the state capitol and also at the federal level as well. Of course, we're very involved with what's going on at the Capitol throughout the session. The 40-day session just ended, but it's an ongoing year-round event. And we are very much focused on what our cities tell us. Our policies are driven by what you and other city leaders say are the important issues. And of course, you serve on our Legislative Policy Council,
Correct.
which is a very important body for us. You meet once a quarter.
Correct. We do.
To go over the policies. But then during the session, your input is so much more valuable because you're having these phone conversations on a weekly basis. we can set our policy as an organization with our, the city's input, all the members' input and everything. But then during the session, when it gets down to the details, things change and shift. And that's where your input and others on the Legislative Policy Council are so important, because we can come to you and say, okay, this is the detail of this bill. How does that really affect, you and your citizens? How is this going to impact them? Give us some stories. So it really helps our lobbyists when they're at the Capitol to be able to tell these stories to the legislators about, this is how it's going to impact a city in your district. This is real life. And I know one of the big bills, of course, this year was the transportation. And you were very, very helpful, and other cities as well. When the bill first came out, it was the proposal was to take some money from the cities and the school boards and the counties. You guys were able to pull together actual information that painted a story of what this looks like. If this happens, if we lose these sales tax dollars, that's 6 police officers or 6 police cars. And it puts a face on local government for the legislators. And I think we try to, obviously we want to work with them. I think transportation funding has to happen, and we're glad that it did, that something was done about it, but not so much at the expense of the locals. So.
Right. Well, that's the thing, and so many times I'm sure our viewers hear, the negative side, or they
Right.
hear about lobbyists, and there are people down at the Capitol that are lobbying for some particular special interest group. But that is a part of the process.
Correct.
But certainly wanted our viewers to know that we have a voice. We have a voice as Georgia cities, as well as our viewers have a voice in GMA, and that we have very skilled, committed voices down there that are lobbying on your behalf to help Georgia cities and to ensure that legislation doesn't get passed that will adversely affect Georgia cities and will adversely affect our citizens.
Absolutely.
And it's a
that's the
very
end of the day.
complicated
Yeah.
process. But GMA has very skilled individuals down there that are doing that. And as you mentioned, I am on GMA's Legislative Policy Council. And during the legislative session, we had a conference call every Monday morning at 8:30 with all of the Legislative Policy Council members from the cities all around Georgia, at which time we would talk about what was going on at the Capitol, what the particular issues were, the input from our lobbyists, as well as Georgia cities' input back to them, and input from our citizens about their interest in what was going on. And House Bill 170, to me, is a classic of how the process works.
Right.
Because,
sometimes it's not pretty.
well, we talked earlier, sometimes it's kind of like making sausage. All of the stuff that goes into the grinder to get it done, and it's ground about and whatnot. But eventually, at the end of the day, you come out with little sausage patties or little sausage links, and everybody's happy with it. So hopefully that was the process. But this House Bill 170 started out as a bill that was going to have a dramatic impact on local governments around the state. And with the input that was given, then GMA was able to take that information and go back. And you mentioned some of the things we did. We actually had our CFO put together a chart that we provided you that showed the exact number of dollars that it would impact the city of Douglasville. And when you do that and you take that to the legislators, it makes it real.
It does. It
And we didn't feel that the state should be able to pass legislation and do one thing, but then we would maybe have to raise
taxes to make up for it.
Right. So
I think at the end of the day, we see GMA, we see cities as partners with the state. I don't think anybody was against funding transportation. We all recognize what a important thing this is. Of course, here in the Metro Atlanta area, congestion is a big deal. But you hear it from all over the state. And it was we do this, if I were mayor, I would, essay contest for 6th graders. And we were just finishing this up during this whole legislative session and reading these essays from around the state. And one of my favorite quotes was from a girl down in South Georgia. And she said, look at have you ever ridden on our roads? They're as bumpy as a toad's back. I thought, that's a good way of explaining it. Yeah,
I can understand that.
They need to pave the road.
Right.
That's what she was saying. We need to pave the roads here. So, there's different needs for the transportation funding has different needs in different areas of the state, but it's critically important to the growth, to the quality of life of our state. Nobody likes sitting in traffic. Nobody likes driving down bumpy roads. So, with everybody's input, I think we've gotten a pretty good bill out of that.
Right. Well, not only is, excuse me, and we mentioned the legislative issues at the state capitol, but not only is GMA working with the state, but you work with the federal government.
Absolutely.
And the whole process. We work with our congressional folks to give input, and we working together are able to help with the legislation or get things done that truly have a better impact for Georgia cities.
And with our congressmen and our senators, they're in Washington. Of course, they have representatives here. They're good representatives of the state of Georgia, but that distance can sometimes be an obstacle. So we have some folks who are very dedicated to being our federal policy council members who make sure that our congressmen and our senators know what's going on back in their communities. And it's a great relationship that we have with our congressional delegation. Just that exchange of information, like, if you're looking at internet sales tax, let's talk about how that really impacts Main Street. And it does. So we're able to give them examples and help them with those types of things.
Well, let's talk a little bit about one of the things called Hometown Connection.
Yes.
That you play a big part in that and communications of it and getting that around the state. Tell our viewers a little bit about the Hometown Connection.
We started this several years ago, and what it is an opportunity to bring your legislators and your congressmen into the community and give them a tour. Show them, open up the books, basically, say, here's what our budget is, here's how we're spending money, here's our challenges, here's our opportunities. We encourage cities to take folks on tours, to go visit the physical plant and see how things are done. There's a much better understanding then of how legislation is going to impact the local community if they really understand how things are operating currently. And when you can show them, okay, we're working on a 6-year SPLOST, here's how this money has already made a difference in our community. Here's where we're going next. You can lay out that roadmap. And it builds that familiarity with the city, with the leaders. So during the session, when issues come up and you need to make a phone call, they're a friend already. I mean, they're familiar with you. They may not, we don't expect them to always vote the way we would.
No.
If we had a magic wand, that's one thing. But at least, they're familiar enough, there's respect on both sides, that phone calls and emails can be exchanged and everybody knows everybody and it's understood.
Well, I break that down, and certainly our viewers have heard me talk about this many times, but I break that down to it's communications. It's just like at home.
Right.
Whether it be your spouse, your kids, your church, your communications. Communications is very key and critical to what we do. And with government, that communications is very important. Yeah. And GMA does a great job in helping us do that. I
think, when I first started covering city government as a reporter, and I'm going to age myself here, it was during the time when the EPD, the Environmental Protection Division, was just changing the rules on how you can do landfills. They were saying you can't just dig a hole and put your trash there. There was all this science then that came into it. You had to have liners and leachate collection systems and all of this. Government has gotten so much more complicated over the last 20 years that I've been around it. And it is vital to have that communication because we can all have opinions about how things should be done. But there are laws that prohibit the way things we think should be done. And if you're not aware, your opinion is, their government isn't doing what government should be doing. Well, government can't do that. So it's important to have this communication, not just amongst the legislators and city officials and federal leaders, but also, with your citizens. And I think you guys do a really good job of that, of having those discussions so that people understand what it is that you're doing.
Well, that's a part of what News and Views with the Mayor is about, as well as the multitude of other ways that we work to communicate with our citizens.
Right.
It's that communications. It's getting that information out there. It's getting those ideas out there. And then certainly we want that information back. So what we try to do and want to do is communicate with our citizens, make them more aware of the process, what's going on, who the partners are, and then get feedback from them.
Right.
Because really, at the end of the day, it's their government.
Absolutely.
So we
Absolutely.
want them to be engaged, but we want them to be informed. Let's talk a little bit about let's kind of lump together, if we can, the resources and the training. The training, to me, that GMA offers is invaluable. Tell us a little bit about the training program.
Well, one thing I think I'm kind of proud of is the fact that GMA, or Georgia was the first state in the nation to mandate training for newly elected city officials.
I did not know that.
Yeah. It is a mandatory thing, and that training takes a 2.5-day period, and we do it through the Carl Vinson Institute at the University of Georgia, and it's kind of this overview of all the things you're going to run into.
At about 30,000 feet.
Exactly. So we offer, I think now it's about 16 other courses that delve in deeper into those issues. It's open meetings, open records, it's community development issues, it's
Government finance, the legal side,
all of that. I mean, those are critical things to know. And I often say, those courses are voluntary. You can choose to take them. My thing with the training is, you know what? If you stay in government long enough, you're going to learn this stuff, but you're going to learn it the hard way. Why not take a 3 or a 6 hour course and learn it on a book?
Go to school and figure it out before you are in trouble, and then you got to figure it out.
Exactly. So our training continues to grow, and we've made some changes in the last year. We've got a lot of input back from our city officials. We had been doing 6 hour courses for many, many years, and I said, can we get some shorter courses? So now we're doing some 3 hour courses as well, and you get credit for it. You get 3 hours of credit or 6 hours credit, and you can earn different levels of certification for the training. And we're doing more regional training. Typically, we have 2 large conferences a year: our Mayor's Day, which takes place in January in Atlanta, and then our annual convention, which is in Savannah in June. So those are the 2 big training opportunities, but we're doing smaller ones around the state so more people can get training. And to me, it is so invaluable. You learn a lot in the class, but you also learn a lot from the people in the class, because
right.
Every class, I teach a couple classes, and I say it's the same. I'm teaching the same material, but we're all learning different things each time because everybody brings something different to the discussion. They have different experiences that we can use in the class to figure things out.
And the process and everything is evolving. Like I said, I was on the council 20 years ago, and I look at what was going on then. Some of the things as it relates to government finance, some of the legal things are still the same. But even the legal aspect of it changes.
Yeah. Every legislative session, something is changing.
Exactly. There's a new law on the books, and not only at the legislative, but at the federal level with the federal laws that are constantly changing and evolving. So, if you're going to truly be a good, effective local or statewide official, you avail yourself of all the training and all the information that you can get, because then that enables you to be a better representative of the people in the legislative process. As our time grows short, let's talk and give us just a little bit of information. You talked about that there are 2 retreat sessions basically a year, and we have Mayor's Day in January in Atlanta, which is an annual event, but we have the big event coming up in Savannah.
Right.
And sometimes people think, we're just going to Savannah to
have fun,
to party and have fun.
God, I wish. I say that because I get so exhausted there.
But that's not the case.
No.
And there's a very rigorous schedule from early in the morning till late in the evening. It is
jam-packed. And we've actually, sometimes we've had people say, oh gosh, there's too much going on. It's like, no, we're going to give you so much. We're going to make this worth the time and money that you're spending here at our convention. So, it's several days of training opportunities. We do concurrent sessions at those. The theme for our convention changes each year. We have a new theme each year. And this year, it's creative impacts. And we're looking at the art and culture in communities and the impact that it has, tourism, economy, just quality of life. And we're really, really excited about the theme this year and what the convention is going to offer. We're working with the Georgia Council on the Arts. We're going to have some, a display there of some Georgia art. We're talking about local artists, and we have study that's coming out of the pilot program that shows how different communities are strategically using the arts within their community for economic development, for tourism, or just as part of what they are and who they are and how they tell their story. Because every city has a story to tell.
Well, as we get closer to the GMA convention in June, we'll maybe either have you back or have someone back or have Janice back to talk a little bit about the convention, what's going on, so that our viewers will certainly know and understand what's happening. As I said earlier when we started, to our viewers, you were going to get to see a little bit more as we went through the interview of Amy's passion. I think you have for GMA and Georgia cities and what she does. And as you can see, she is very passionate about it. She's very engaged, and she brings that energy and that aliveness, if that's a word.
It is now.
Right. We just coined it. But she does a great job because she is passionate about what goes on within our local communities, whether they be a city of, I think the smallest cities maybe 300 or 400 or something like that.
No, the smallest city is 24 people.
24 people. You heard it here.
Ed Chill, yes.
And all the way up to city of Atlanta, which is 400,000 or 500,000 people now, and everything in between. So a wide variety of people, ideas, thoughts, visions, and GMA works with us to help pull that together to a common vision, a common idea of what we can do to help make Georgia a better state. And GMA is working to help us right here in Douglasville be one of the premier places in America to live, work, play, raise a family, and be all we can be. And I want to thank you today, Amy, for being with us. I know you have a busy schedule. I know you've just come off the legislative session, but you're getting ready to gear up for the convention. Yeah. So we thank you for taking your time to come out and be with us today.
Well,
and thank you for the job that you do at GMA.
Thank you.
And thank you to our viewers for joining us today to listen to Ms. Henderson talk about what a great organization GMA is and what they do to help us in Georgia cities in Douglasville provide better governing and legislation to you and help you to be able to get better services. So we thank you. We're glad to have you also, our viewers, and have a great day.